When this gun started firing, it didn't stop, even after the ship was sinking. October 25, 1944, the Philippine Sea, just east of the island of Samar. At first light, low clouds hung over a restless ocean. The wind carried the smell of aviation fuel and salt spray. Beneath that calm surface, history was about to turn violent. A small American task group, designated Task Unit 77.4.3, known simply as Taffy 3, was operating where it was never meant to fight. 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, 4 destroyer escorts, lightly armed ships designed to support amphibious landings, not confront enemy capital ships. But steaming toward them from the north was the full weight of the Imperial Japanese Navy center force, battleships, heavy cruisers, and destroyers fresh from the San Bernardino Strait. And in the middle of that approaching storm was one American destroyer, USS Johnston, hull number DD-557. When the firing began, one gun aboard Johnston would refuse to fall silent, continuing to speak and steal and fire, even as the sea began to claim the ship itself. Fear gripped the men on deck. Little did they know that what happened next would become legendary. USS Johnston was a Fletcher-class destroyer, one of the most successful destroyer designs of the Second World War. She displaced approximately 2,500 tons fully loaded, stretched 376 feet from bow to stern, and could reach speeds of over 34 knots. Her main armament consisted of 5 5-inch 38-caliber dual-purpose guns, capable of engaging both surface and air targets. She also carried 10 21-inch Mark 15 torpedoes, depth charges, and anti-aircraft weapons including 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oilercons. Her captain was Lieutenant Commander Ernest E. Evans. Evans was not a man given to half measures. Born in Oklahoma, of Native American heritage, he believed deeply in discipline, personal courage, and responsibility. He demanded perfection from his crew and gave them unwavering loyalty in return. By October 1944, Johnston and her sister ships were supporting General Douglas MacArthur's return to the Philippines. The Leyte landings, begun on October 20th, were the largest amphibious operation in the Pacific to date. The Japanese response was desperate and complex. Operation Shogo 1, a 3-pronged naval counterattack designed to annihilate the invasion fleet. Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force, 4 battleships including Yamato, Nagato, Kongo, and Haruna, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers was the most powerful component of that plan. Taffy 3 was never supposed to meet it, but in war, plans unravel. At 06:45 hours, lookouts aboard USS Johnston reported tall pagoda masts breaking the northern horizon. At first, disbelief, then confirmation. Battleships. By 06:58 hours, the Japanese opened fire. Columns of water erupted near the escort carriers as 8-inch and 14-inch shells straddled the formation. The range was over 30,000 yards, but it was closing fast. Rear Admiral Clifton Spragg, commanding Taffy 3, ordered all carriers to turn south and make maximum speed. Aircraft were launched immediately. Fighters, dive bombers, torpedo planes, many without full armament. Smoke screens billowed across the sea as destroyers maneuvered to shield the fleeing carriers. But Evans saw something else. Time. If someone didn't buy it, the carriers would be slaughtered. At 07:04 hours, Evans ordered all ahead flank. Johnston surged forward, accelerating straight toward the Japanese line. She was alone. Enemy shells began falling closer. One salvo landed just 200 yards off the starboard bow, drenching the bridge in spray. By 07:24 hours, at a range of 10,000 yards, Johnston opened fire with her forward guns. The target, the heavy cruiser Kumano. Shell after shell slammed into Kumano's superstructure, smashing rangefinders and setting fires. Johnston zigzagged violently, throwing off enemy aim while maintaining fire. Then came the torpedoes. At 07:30 hours, Evans ordered all 10 Mark 15 torpedoes fired. Minutes later, explosions ripped through Kumano's bow, blowing it nearly off. The cruiser veered out of formation, crippled and burning. Johnston had drawn blood, and now every Japanese gun turned toward her. At 07:45 hours, Johnston was hit. A large caliber shell, likely from the battleship Kongo, punched through the ship's hull amidships before detonating deep inside. The impact was catastrophic. Engineering spaces flooded, power failed, communications were severed, speed dropped to 17 knots. A second hit followed moments later, then a third. Men were thrown across compartments, fires erupted, ammunition cooked off in secondary explosions. Thick black smoke poured from shattered vents. The ship began to list. Despite his own wounds, shrapnel embedded in his face and torso, Evans refused to leave the bridge. "Keep fighting," he ordered. Gun crews operated manually as electrical systems failed. Shells were passed hand to hand. Blood mixed with oil on the deck. The air was filled with the deafening roar of artillery and the screams of the wounded. By 0810 hours, Johnston had taken at least 3 major caliber hits and numerous near misses. 2 of her 5 main guns were out of action. Steering was damaged. Still, she fought. At close range, Johnston engaged Japanese destroyers attempting to flank the carriers. Her guns scored hits, forcing them to turn away. For 3 brutal hours, Johnston absorbed punishment meant for ships 10 times her size. Against impossible odds, she refused to break. What happened next would become legendary. By 0830 hours, Johnston was barely maneuverable. Japanese destroyers closed in to finish her off, firing at ranges under 7,000 yards. Only one main gun remained operational, Mount 53, the aft 5-inch gun. The gun captain was killed by a near miss. Another sailor stepped forward, then another. Each time a man fell, someone else took his place. Even as seawater swept across the deck and the ship listed heavily to starboard, Mount 53 continued firing, scoring direct hits on enemy destroyers, disrupting their attacks. Meanwhile, Taffy 3's aircraft, many unarmed or carrying depth charges, made repeated attack runs. Pilots strafed bridges, dropped empty fuel tanks, anything to slow the enemy. Confusion spread through the Japanese formation. Smoke screens obscured visibility. Air attacks seemed endless. The ferocity of the destroyer attacks suggested a larger American force. By 0920 hours, Admiral Kurita made a fateful decision. He ordered a general withdrawal. The Japanese fleet turned north. Against all logic, against all probability, Taffy 3 had survived. But Johnston would not. By 0945 hours, USS Johnston was dead in the water. Lieutenant Commander Evans ordered abandon ship. As the destroyer rolled onto her side, Mount 53 fired its final rounds, muzzle flashes blinking defiantly, even as waves washed over the deck. Moments later, Johnston slipped beneath the surface. Of her crew of 327 officers and men, 186 were killed. Evans went down with his ship. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, cited for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. The battle off Samar became one of the most extraordinary naval actions in history. A victory not of firepower, but of courage, not of numbers, but of will. USS Johnston's sacrifice helped save the invasion fleet at Leyte and ensured the success of MacArthur's return to the Philippines. The human cost was devastating. The legacy was eternal. When this gun started firing, it did not stop. Even after the ship was sinking, even as the sea closed in, it fired for the men beside it, for the carriers it protected, for the idea that courage can outweigh steel. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WW2 Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.